Car manufacturers are constantly making new technology to improve on their cars, make them better, and as well sometimes just to sell more cars. With that said, not all technology is great. As a matter of fact, there's some technology that really needs to go away, like inflation, spandex, and lawn darts. I'm going to share a list of new car trends that literally need to disappear and just never ever come back. BMW and a lot of other manufacturers are starting to get on board is charging you a subscription to upgrade the performance output. Yes, that's right. The vehicle comes with the hardware, the mechanicals to actually put the power down. But if you want to get the full beast, you actually have to spend $1,000 to get that extra elevated level of performance. BMW started this trend, a lot of their technology inside the vehicle. For example, I'll show you. Options like this, you have heated seats. Obviously, the hardware exists. There's modules under the seats, there's wiring, there's relays and switches, like you see right there, and those will work. I just press the button and away they go. But BMW now installs all that equipment, but they will charge you an additional $15 a month if you want to use the heated seats as an option. They will continue an ongoing subscription, so you never really get out of the hole, and they've got you locked in. Also, you can do a heated steering wheel. You can pay another $12 or $13 to get that subscription. Also, other features like Apple CarPlay that you'd find on the display here is another function that BMW would be charging you for on a subscription type basis. I mean, subscriptions are fine. We all get used to paying them to some degree. We talk about subscriptions for things like satellite radio, but those are add-ons. But we're talking about hardware that actually exists in these vehicles, and they're now starting to normalize this whole subscription process to make sure that you and I, the consumers, constantly are tied to payments. Whether we own the vehicle or not, through leasing or financing, or through a constant cycle of purchasing, that doesn't matter. We will be held financially by some of these manufacturers through subscriptions. Whoa, man, that needs to just disappear. Life's too short to drive boring cars. Unfortunately, we knew this day would finally arrive with the advent of every vehicle being technologically advanced to the point where they virtually drive themselves. Ford's allowed about 1,000 patents a year, and as a result, they've now applied for the latest one, and this is a technology that is guaranteed to come in fast and furious with the advent of all of these electric vehicles these days. We also know, in anticipation of what's going on in the market, this last year has been upside down. A lot of people paying too much for vehicles. Now, a year later, a lot of those vehicles are underwater, or the owners are underwater on their loan payments. The vehicle's worth far less than they actually owe on that vehicle, and that's the worst part. So what's going to happen? Inevitably, a lot of people are going to default on a lot of loans. They're going to walk away from their car payments, and what that means is, unfortunately, repossessions. Well, Ford's getting ahead of that game by actually designing a technology and applying for a patent in which they can automatically engage a repossession action. If you have a standard vehicle like this, at the very least, it would lock it out, secure it, you couldn't start the vehicle. If you have a semi-autonomous or autonomous vehicle, it might actually engage the vehicle, drive it just slightly into a safe position so a tow truck could actually pick it up. They may even go a step further and drive it to an impound lot. If it's a fully autonomous vehicle and the market is in a place where it can actually accept that, they may in fact get that vehicle automatically while you're sleeping at night and you've defaulted on your loan payments, drive that vehicle to a local impound lot where the bank or your lending institution can come on by and scoop it up and take what's theirs. Wow, what has technology done for us these days? The next most annoying automotive trend that literally needs to disappear. Cut it off at the knees, chuck it out the dumpster. And what is that? Well, let's look at this Mercedes here and I'll show you. So many cars nowadays have these fake vents. You have nothing there. There's no inlet. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't flow air. But if you're talking about Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, some of those are the innovators. They're performance car brands. They'll use ducts. They'll use vents for real. And those may go in there to cool oil, transmission, brake ducts. They are there for a reason. But a lot of modern day cars like this are fake. That doesn't do anything. That's just annoying. It looks silly. It looks ridiculous. It really should be followed by the actual functionality, but instead it's all about form and there's no value added there. The back, it's the same story. You often have a lot of these little vents here that there's not even a vent. It's just a plastic insert that looks like a vent, but it doesn't actually do anything. That is annoying and should go away. Or it should actually have a hole there and create some kind of airflow that actually causes some functionality. The other part is fake exhaust tips like this. Now, while this vehicle here has a little bit of functionality, these tips are more of a sleeve. As you can see, the actual exhaust in there, they do exhaust outwards, but a lot of modern day vehicles, those are actually blanked off, and there's actually a a blank filler in there and you actually have no exhaust at all, and the exhaust either curves down and exhausts through the bottom of the vehicle, or it's not even in there at all and there's a center mount and there's not even any sort of connection with that outside interface, and those pieces are literally just fake on a lot of modern day vehicles. Have you seen a lot of modern day Audis? They have that ring around it, but it's blanked and you can literally see it from the outside here. Very, very annoying. Should go away. Fake vents and exhausts. And this here is the next trend. What are we looking at here? The automatic transmission right here. And this car here actually is a Mercedes. It has a torque converter, wet style type automatic transmission. Pretty conventional. It's a 9-speed, it's reliable, it's nice to drive, it's shiftable in the paddles, and actually you can hear the decided gear changes. The problem is it's not the automatic transmission. The CVT is what needs to disappear, and it's a growing trend, particularly in smaller import vehicles. A lot of vehicles, for example, Nissan learned a hard lesson by extending out the CVTs in almost all of their models, including their upscale brands in Infiniti. The things got so bad by that continuously variable transmission that in fact they finally decided to reverse that trend and go back to a torque converter automatic in some of their other models, because the CVT is nothing but a bunch of shivs, pulleys, and belts that burn up, overheat, have high levels of maintenance, and when they fail, not if, when they fail, they will cost you an arm and 3.5 legs to the tune of $3,000-$4,000 if you have to rebuild or replace that transmission. Service costs are a little higher than normal as well, and just the maintenance requirements are escalated. On top of that, they don't drive well either. They actually sound buzzy, hummy, and you don't get that shift sound. You basically just have one steadier linear acceleration, and the engine is never in a nice place. No CVT here. When you pull the gears, you actually hear it shift. It actually sounds like a car should sound. As you accelerate, you hit the maximum RPM, you shift up. That sounds great. That's what a transmission should do. Always optimize your engine RPM and your power and performance, not CVTs. CVTs are just weak, gutless, and quite frankly, boring. They're horrible transmission, and one that literally should be obsolete. And yet another trend that really needs to disappear is related to something specifically manufacturers are doing to shed weight. As a matter of fact, weight is the enemy of performance, weight's the enemy of fuel economy, and so if you start stripping weight away, sure, better performance results as well as better fuel economy. But it's not just about weight. A lot of vehicles nowadays have tires and wheels that are very tall. 20-inch, 22-inch wheels are large. They're very large, they're wide, they're big and beefy and powerful. So it's not always practical. And a lot of vehicles now also have staggered wheels. The front wheel might actually be smaller than the back wheel, and as a result they're not interchangeable. You can't rotate tires, and so that blows that out the window. However, one trend that's worrying is right in here. So we flip this up, and what do we have in there? Or what don't we have? We clearly don't have a spare tire anymore. There's no jacks, there's no spare tires. Sometimes a lot of these cars only have a can of puncture seal that you can use to spray, fill up your tire, and basically get yourself home. Or a lot of manufacturers now, particularly BMW, are using run flat tires right there. Even if they get a puncture or nail, it'll tell you on the dash that you've got a problem, but it will hold air for a long period of time. And if you maintain your speed under 80 kilometers an hour or 50 miles an hour, you can usually drive up to about 100 kilometers or 60 miles just to get your vehicle safely home or to the tire shop to get that all properly fixed. But the sad reality is there's no fixing roadside anymore with a lot of these modern day vehicles. The lack of a spare tire just means that there's very little you can do but call your local tow truck or basically limp it home in some way or another. The next automotive trend I find really annoying, and it makes the car feel a little disconnected from you when you're gripping the steering wheel and you're driving along and you got your wheel, and you'll notice it has the graphics. A lot of times most of these vehicles have some type of graphic where it shows a road or shows something that indicates that you're between some lanes. Well, it's that lane keep assist that actually is very, very annoying. And while some people believe it's a safety feature that actually prevents accidents, I personally think it shocks people. Some vehicles are really aggressive. We have a Toyota Camry that when you get slightly off skew, it just shakes, it really shakes out of your hands. As soon as you veer off a little bit, whoa, 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 and then it takes you back in. Oh, better take that in. My Jaguar F-Type, same thing. Feels like all of a sudden the steering wheel feels loose. It has a really disconnected digital electronic type, unreal type feeling to it when you start crossing that lane. If you have that lane assist program set up, I personally like to disable it, but it's another feature that just adds to that digital feedback that you get from these cars nowadays that just makes it feel unrealistic. The next trend is directly related to what's going on in the industry. A lot of electrified vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and the vehicles that have internal combustion engines are often turbocharged, so they're muffled, as well as they've got a resonator, 2 resonators, a couple of catalytic converters, and a muffler to boot. And it's to the point where you almost can't even hear exhaust sounds. So a lot of these manufacturers are trying to replicate some exciting exhaust sounds by the use of exhaust sound generators. Whether they want you to emit the sound right out of the tailpipe or make the sound come into the cabin so you think you're listening to this great exhaust note. Let's face it, BMW sort of started a lot of that trend with a lot of their M5s and a lot of their other vehicles that were starting to get too toned down, so they want to re-inject some of that digital sound into the cabin through the speakers and make it sound like you were in something hot, when in actuality there wasn't half as much noise actually coming out of the engine as there was perceived to be coming into the cabin. It's these fake sounds as a result of the industry creating such a digital type of driving experience that honestly it's a sad state of affairs when we have to pretend and blow electronic noises like it's actually a reality. It's been the cause of many accidents, collisions, controversy. It questions and challenges authorities and whether it's legal, and you've seen people driving behind the wheel of their car leaned back, sleeping while the car's driving down the road. And it's absolutely all about autonomous vehicles and basically the autopilot. And where did that all originate? Well, that essentially originated with the Tesla program. And of course, Tesla is known for a lot of the autopilot programming, and while it works fun in the perfect case scenario, it doesn't always work. There's been lots of cases where somebody turned it on, sat back, and they literally blew through a construction zone and almost wrecked their car, or other cases where the autopilot system kicked into gear and launched the car right into a building. Many cases, many stories of autopilot going off the rails, and it's been an actual controversial discussion around NHTSA and recalls, and whether in fact that should even be legal. And when I grew up, there was a time when we controlled the vehicle. We grabbed the steering wheel by the balls. Now it's the other way around. The vehicle are driving the people. Vehicles are full of sensors and detection using the satellites in the sky to give this vehicle a certain level of capability. The problem is it's not perfect, and I'm not sure it ever will be. That's one that literally needs to go away. Gesture controls as well as proximity controls. Here, for example, BMW's running a version of gesture controls where you just wave your hand in the air, and of course the radio volume goes up and down, and then you can control it that way. But that's just nothing but annoying. At the end of the day, all you're doing is waving your hand in the air, looking like a fool, and it's just something to giggle and talk about. You might as well just reach for that button or that knob. It's just simpler and it's just easier. But the other issue has to do with on the outside of a lot of these vehicles. Let's look. This rear trunk is supposed to open both with the key fob as well as a button inside, and you should be able to wave your foot down at the bottom and just get this trunk to open up. But every single time I do that, it never opens properly, or then I walk away and then it opens. So those proximity openings never work properly for me, and that's a technology that's both annoying, I stand there looking like a fool, and I just wish it would go away. Right there, we're talking about the big screens. Now, while this particular screen isn't all that large, this is a modern day Mercedes-Benz, a lot of the modern day vehicles have touch screens, and that's all you can do is control the modern day vehicles and everything that it does through that screen. A couple examples, the modern day Ferrari 296 GTB and GTS absolutely use haptics touch screens as well as capacitive screens to control everything in those cars. They've pretty much foregone everything in terms of knobs and buttons. Recently, we drove a Tesla Model X. Everything, including drive and reverse, is engaged through the touchscreen. And even the Tesla Model 3 that we had this year for some time has the majority of the controls in the center of the screen. So in other words, if that screen dies, and it's known to do that, that will wipe out your opportunity even to get the vehicle home. Have you ever thought about the last time you had a cell phone that crapped, a computer that died? Yeah, it's electronics, they do fail. And when they do, you can't even move the vehicle down the road. You're literally at the mercy of the modern day technology. So this modern day touch screens, oversized center controls, as well as haptic and capacitive screens are a thing that need to die like the wind. And with all of that said, check that video, you're going to love it. That's one of my more recent videos of cars with some of the worst engines that will not last. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. We'll catch you real soon. Bye-bye.